So in today's video, I am going to be talking about 7 masterpiece fragrances. So if you like the sound of that, then please do keep on watching. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if it's the first time you are visiting. Thank you so much for joining me today. As I already mentioned in the intro, today I'm going to be talking all about fragrances that I deem to be masterpieces. And I have tried to select fragrances that are maybe not so obvious. So you're not going to be seeing a Delina in here. You're not going to be seeing a Baccarat Rouge. So if you want to see the list, then please do keep on watching. The first fragrance that is a true masterpiece to me is from Thameen, and this one is Peregrina. And a masterpiece fragrance to me is something that I wouldn't change a thing about. It's a complete 10 out of 10 and it is a fragrance that I will forever repurchase. And Peregrina, whilst it is a new fragrance in my collection, I have worn this 5 days in a row, which says a lot for me. That never happens. And I've just become obsessed with it. I know so many of you also love Peregrina because I've had it recommended to me so many times in the comments, and I put out a post on Instagram recently asking for bridal recommendations, and Peregrina definitely got a love in the recommendations too. So to me, Peregrina is a rose gourmand. It's a beautiful floral for sure, but those florals or those petals have almost become crystallized. They are very sweet and sugary. And then you've also got a note of caramel, which takes this from being just a floral to being a floral gourmand. And I love florals and I love gourmands, so I can absolutely understand why I love Peregrina. It also has a beautiful amber note in the base, and it helps this fragrance last all day. Now, the first time I wore this on my skin, I went a little bit anosmic to it for the first hour, but other people could still smell it. And I was a bit confused at that point, but then it came back, and it almost came back stronger, like my skin chemistry had been doing something with the fragrance. And then it was projecting so beautifully throughout the day, and it lasted 14 hours on my skin, which is quite rare for me, I have to say. I was in Selfridges recently at the Thameen counter, and I asked the sales associate what his favorite Thameen fragrance was, and he said Peregrina, and quickly handed me the paper test strip. And I'd smelled it before, so I was just kind of like, okay. And something hit me in that moment. I was like, wow. And I knew then and there that I was going to be buying this fragrance on the day. And it was actually his scent of the day too. Now, this is definitely a feminine fragrance, but I love that he was rocking it. And I can absolutely see why, because this is the most stunning gourmand floral, as I've already mentioned. You do have lots of beautiful florals in here, like rose, lily of the valley, gardenia, and ylang ylang. But I also get the beautiful sweet caramel note. I get the vanilla. There's a note of myrrh, and there's also amber and some slight musky powdery notes in the base. But it's definitely a sweet floral. I think this is extremely feminine. I feel my best self when I wear this, and I believe this to be an absolute masterpiece because I cannot fault one thing about it. I absolutely adore Peregrina. It is my scent of the day again. As I said, like, I can't stop wearing it. I think it's a truly, truly special fragrance, and yeah, it's just taken me by surprise, to be quite honest with you, in the best way possible. The next fragrance is a new release, and it is by Nuit Nomade, and it is Sugar Leather. And I have spoken about this one already on my channel. It is very, very new, but I feel like it deserved a spot in this list because to me, I would not change one thing about this fragrance. It's an absolute 10 out of 10. I feel like it's a masterpiece, and I am totally obsessed with this one. This is a beautiful caramelized sugar fragrance with a little bit of cinnamon. It kind of has a tonka bean vibe to it too. Very, very gourmand. The leather is very subtle, so if you're not a leather lover, do not let that put you off. But it is definitely like a caramelized sugar in the sun. You get a little bit of amarish, you get a little bit of cinnamon. It's very cozy. I would wear this in the summer, and even though the notes are screaming autumn and winter, I would definitely wear this in the spring and summer too. I have worn this in the spring. Of course, we're in spring now, and I just feel like this is an absolute masterpiece of a fragrance. It kind of has a slight boozy element too. I get lots of that caramel, but I also get lots of like brown sugar, and I love the smell of brown sugar. I think it's absolutely delicious. There's a vanillic touch, almost a tonka bean touch too. It's slightly cakey. It's definitely a gourmand. The leather is really subtle, but it just adds that perfect edge to the fragrance to stop it being too sweet and too overbearing. I get a slight floral nuance, just a very slight floral nuance, and a little bit of woodiness. I feel like the name sums this one up very well. It's a caramelized sugar leather. The sugar is more prominent than the leather, as I've already mentioned. It's definitely a gourmand, a cozy gourmand at that. And I feel like this is one that everyone needs to try if you like the sound of the notes. I've mentioned this so many times before, but Nuit Nomade has many options. You can buy a 10ml atomizer, you can buy a 25ml bottle, 50ml and 100ml. So I feel like they have lots of options no matter your price point. It's an affordable brand for the quality of the fragrances that they produce, and I highly recommend Sugar Leather. I think it's a masterpiece. I would not change one thing about it, as I've mentioned. So yeah, I had to include it in this list. How could I do a masterpiece fragrance video without including this next one? And it is none other than Starlight by Xerjoff. And this is one of my favorite fragrances in my collection. I'm absolutely obsessed with Starlight, as with the rest of the fragrances in this video, but Starlight definitely holds a special place in my heart. It's the type of composition that I'm really drawn to. It's an amber, but a very translucent amber. There's lots of beautiful spices in here, most prominent being cardamom. I'm a big cardamom lover. But then you've got almond, you've got cinnamon, you've got cloves, and I've described Starlight as smelling a little bit like baklava. Very delicious. You're getting that sweet, flaky pastry with some kind of like caramel. You've got the beautiful spices from the cardamom, the cinnamon, the clove, and then you've got a beautiful base of amber. This is definitely a gourmand, but it's not a super sweet gourmand, and the amber is quite translucent, so it's not a heavy fragrance at all. I could wear this all year round, and I absolutely do wear this all year round. If you like fragrances similar to Armani Privé's Magenta Tanzanite, Xerjoff's Remember Me, Fragrance du Bois Minuit et Demi, then I highly recommend checking out Starlight by Xerjoff because it is truly special. I'd say it has a little bit of a lightness compared to Magenta Tanzanite and Minuit et Demi. There's a juicy bergamot note in the opening with Starlight. It's a slightly fresher take, I would say, but then the spices really do ground this fragrance and make it long lasting. I would absolutely not dream of changing one thing about this one. I think it's absolutely incredible. 10 out of 10 / 11 out of 10 / 100 out of 10. I adore this one. There's lots of reviews on my channel, so I had to include Xerjoff Starlight in this list. If you watch my channel, you probably will not be surprised by the next fragrance, and it is none other than Soie Malaquais by Dries van Noten. I love this one so much. It's probably in my top 3 fragrances in my whole collection, and I have a lot of fragrances. Now, this is very special to me, so I do not wear it often. I like to save it for special occasions, and it's currently in my top 2 picks for my wedding day scent. I still haven't quite landed on it. I've got 3 weeks to decide before I get married, but I absolutely adore Soie Malaquais. But I think you probably already know that if you watch my channel. This is silky smooth, as the name suggests, but I also think this is a very unique composition. The combination of the blackcurrant, the silk note, the chestnut, and the cacao makes this such a stunning fragrance. I can't even tell you. You absolutely have to try and get your nose on it, or get a decant if you can. I know it's a little bit harder to find in the department stores, but if you like fragrances similar to me, I don't feel like you would be disappointed. And how gorgeous is the packaging too. But what does it smell like? It is fruity. So you definitely get the blackcurrant. There's a little bit of bergamot too. But then the silk, I can't quite explain what the silk does to this fragrance, but it makes it so smooth. And it does actually feel like silk on the skin and even to my nose. It's so hard to describe what I mean by that, but I think that makes this truly special. The chestnut adds a little bit of creaminess. This isn't necessarily a nutty fragrance, but it adds this beautiful, creamy, smooth, slightly roasted vibe to it. And then you have the cacao, which isn't too present. It's not a chocolate fragrance, but it's just a little bit of a dusting to cut through the sweetness up top. This performs like nothing else in the winter. I am yet to wear it in the summer, but I'm hoping and I feel like it will perform just the same. And I just feel incredible when I wear Soie Malaquais. This is sexy, it's feminine, and it will make me feel like my best self, as I've already mentioned. So of course I feel like this one is a masterpiece. It is an absolute 100 out of 10 for me. I adore it. It is a special occasion fragrance. I just love it that much that I don't want to kind of wear it every day. That's just my personal view, but you can absolutely wear this as an everyday fragrance. So yeah, that was Soie Malaquais by Dries van Noten. The next fragrance is an absolute masterpiece within my collection, and it is from Roja, and this one is Enigma Oud. This is absolutely one of the most beautifully composed fragrances in my collection. You would expect that for the price point. It is an absolute luxury fragrance, but Enigma Oud has to be one of my favorite Roja fragrances ever. And I don't wear my Roja fragrances every day. They're just too special for me. And I know that's a bit weird. They shouldn't just sit there gathering dust, but I just do not like to see the juice go down on them. But Enigma Oud probably sounds like an absolute powerhouse. Of course, it has oud in the name, but I would say this is a very friendly oud. It's very smooth and it's not too strong. What this is to me is a fruity, floral, slightly powdery fragrance. I get lots of peach, I get lots of vanilla, and it's almost like they've been coated in a powdered sugar. So it is a powdery fragrance, as I mentioned, but that powder kind of pulls like a powdered sugar to me, if that makes any sense at all. There are so many beautiful florals in here, like rose, ylang ylang, geranium, jasmine, etc. The oud is there, but as I mentioned, it's not too prominent. It's a very feminine, this would make a good bridal scent actually. Now in the base, you've got a beautiful note of orris, which definitely grounds this. It adds an earthy creaminess, which cuts through some of the sweeter notes up top. And then you also have a sandalwood that is very creamy. So I would say this is a beautiful, creamy floral with a little bit of oud, with a little bit of powderiness, and that juicy note of peach. And whilst I will say, if you smell this for long enough, you can absolutely pick out some of those key notes. But as with all Roja fragrances, they are blended to perfection. Nothing kind of overpowers each other. Everything is just very seamless. I would say this is a very royal and regal scent. It would make a good bridal scent or a black tie special occasion scent. But yeah, it's so beautifully done. Powdered florals, sugary peach, soft, translucent oud that's very easy to wear. Enigma Oud had to be included in here because it is a true masterpiece. It's an absolutely spectacular fragrance. I don't often talk about Roja on my channel, but I do have quite a few Rojas in my collection. So please do let me know if you would want to hear more about Roja fragrances, because I'm more than happy to do so. But this is a masterpiece fragrance without a doubt. So that was Enigma Oud by Roja. The next fragrance is from BDK and it is Gris Charnel. And I think this is a masterpiece because it's beautifully composed. There's not one thing I would change about it. And the scent profile is actually really unique. Lots of people love Gris Charnel. This one was getting hyped, I think about 2 years ago, and for good reason, because it is the most beautiful woody fig fragrance with a little bit of cardamom. As soon as I saw the notes, I was like, I need to try this one because cardamom, fig, sandalwood, I was like, yep, sign me up. I need this one. And I've told this story before on my channel, but I actually bought this because I had a very specific outfit in mind that I didn't have a fragrance that matched the vibe. And I know that sounds a little bit strange, but it's just how my brain works sometimes. And it was a very black and white Chanel-esque blazer, tweed looking with leather trousers. And I just felt like I needed a very cool girl scent that was appropriate for London in the winter, and Gris Charnel was definitely that one. And I stand by this. I think it is definitely a cool girl fragrance. It is in a way a bit more suited for the cloudy weather. I think London weather is very appropriate for Gris Charnel, if I'm being honest. But you could wear this in any climate. I did wear this in the summer too. The fig and the cardamom works beautifully in the heat. It kind of warms up on the skin and kind of radiates out and gives this beautiful aromatic feel. The sandalwood in here is very creamy, and I would say it's extremely prominent. The notes I actually get the most in here is the cardamom and the sandalwood. It also has black tea, iris, and tonka bean. And whilst I do get all of those notes, I feel like these are all blended so beautifully together, and it just creates the most gorgeous composition. I'd highly recommend checking out Gris Charnel if you haven't already. I'm sure many of you have, but this is a true masterpiece. I would not change one thing about it. And I do want to get my hands on Gris Charnel X Straight because I know I love it. I've sampled it already, and hopefully I will get it in my collection at some point. But if you like your woody fragrances, specifically sandalwood, and you like a tea fragrance too, then this one will be for you. And the last fragrance that I want to talk about today is by Xerjoff, and it is Bouquet Ideale. And I've talked about this one so much on my channel. It is absolutely true love for me. I would not change one thing about it. It is truly special. In essence, it is a woody vanilla with some spices too, but I do perceive this one slightly different to the notes listed. I've mentioned this in many of my reviews, but I do pick out red berries in the composition. They're not listed, but I feel like they are in there. And then I get lots of tonka bean and vanilla too. There's cinnamon and nutmeg in the opening, two of my absolute favorite spices. And then you have a little bit of tobacco leaf in the base. It's an incredible fragrance in my opinion. It's sweet, it's woody, it's a little bit spicy. Oh, there's definitely red berries in here, I have to say. But there's also such a sweetness in here, which is coming from the tonka bean and the vanilla. I just absolutely love Bouquet Ideale. This has the hardest lid to put on, so I'm not snapping it on fully. There we go, I've done it. Wasn't too hard now, was it, Hayley? But yeah, I'd highly recommend you get a sample of this one if you've not tried it already. If you like the sound of nutmeg, cinnamon, and if you like the sound of a bit of a woody base, it's got gaiac wood, it's got sandalwood, and I believe it's also got cedar. I think that's it. Then you've got tobacco leaf, which is not that prominent in the base, and vanilla and tonka bean. True love for me. I will always love Bouquet Ideale, so I had to include it in my masterpiece fragrances list. So that was all the recommendations that I wanted to talk about in today's list. I have many more masterpiece fragrances in my collection. I did do a more masculine leaning version video of this already, so I wanted to bring you maybe a little bit more of a feminine leaning video. But were there any fragrances that I mentioned today that you also love? Please do let me know down in the comments. But as always, what I most want to know are what are the fragrances that you deem to be masterpieces? Please do let me know down in the comments because I'm hoping to find some new and outstanding fragrances from you. Thanks so much for watching. It's been a pleasure as always. I hope to see you in a future video to come. Have a wonderful day and goodbye.